Is there anything in this Queen's speech that helps now ordinary people, millions of British households who are worried about paying their bills, who need to beat the squeeze?
Well, as you know, Liam, yes, I did listen to your introduction very carefully. And as you know, Liam, the Queen's speech isn't about immediate action. It's about the future legislation over the course of this year. So it's absolutely right. I mean, I entirely agree with you. This is a cost of living crisis we're in, and we need to try and step in to help, particularly those low-income households. But as you know, the spring statement, the government did exactly that. Over the last few months, it's put in about £20 billion of support for people through tax threshold increases, so people pay lower taxes, through the energy support for our energy bills. So there has been a lot of support already. But you're right, and I've read the pieces you've written about where inflation is going, and the Bank of England's probably lack of action has contributed to that. These are global market forces, and this inflation is set in for some time, although I do think eventually it will start to get back under control again. But nevertheless, a very difficult time for lots of people up and down the country.
Tony Sophocledes of UK Hospitality. Yesterday, I conducted a pre-recorded interview with a very well-known figure in the UK hospitality industry, and we will be broadcasting that as part of our Money Talk series soon. But what this person said to me was that he has never seen a situation like this in British hospitality. The situation is almost as bad as lockdown. His words in terms of what's happening with consumers being really, really price sensitive now, not being able to pass on margins if you're running a pub, a restaurant or a hospitality business or a hotel. Big increases in costs for your members, increases that they can't put into the prices that they charge. So lots of businesses are under threat.
Yeah, I think there's certainly something in those comments. I mean, it's a very wide and diverse sector. So, you find some areas that are more harshly affected than others. But I think certainly the point on margins is absolutely spot on. It's very difficult at a time when consumer spending is, certainly under pressure and let's say a threat. When you're in a situation where, as we do have, we have a staff shortage, supply chain and energy costs rocketing. So it's a really tough time out there. I think that, going back to Catherine's comments about being old enough to remember bad economic times before, one of the things that perhaps we can take heart from, in fact, not that long ago, was how the hospitality industry fared after the 2008 financial crisis, after which it pulled itself back and grew faster than the national economy. And as you mentioned earlier, created very many jobs. So, we're not without hope. And I think today there were plenty of things in the Queen's speech that will bring succour in the longer term. Now, in the short term, we don't expect short-term measures really from the Queen's speech. So that's a separate issue. But there were things in there that can help down the line, certainly.
Christopher, let's go to you. You are the CEO, as I said, of David Nieper Fashion, your family business. You're a very significant employer in the beautiful Derbyshire town of Alfreton. What do you think about this Queen's speech? We are all absorbing it. It's only happened in the last couple of hours or so. To what extent do you think the Conservative Party is helping people through this cost of living crisis? Do you think they need to do more, Christopher?
Look, I don't know whether they can react quick enough. They've already wasted a couple of years of government not dealing with the levelling up agenda, which is their number one stated domestic priority. Of course, it's right. We've got cost pressures. All our costs have gone up, energy, fabric, materials. And actually, there's a change in the pattern of consumer behavior we're finding. People are being a bit more cautious, a bit more considerate about what they're buying. But the real defining factor, I think, for the next decade is going to be scarcity of labour. And I think your previous guest just mentioned that. It's no longer so viable and it's no longer so ethically acceptable to buy things from the other side of the world. And I think this scarcity of labour actually feeds into exactly what we should be doing right now in the UK to develop British talent right across the country and this underdeveloped talent in forgotten communities like this. And I just wonder whether an idea like the super deduction, the tax super deduction for capital, could be translated into a super deduction for skills. And maybe something like that is a practical example for the government to turn their levelling up rhetoric into real action.
So you've made this argument on this show before. You are one of our original Money Talks guests. It's great to have you back on the show. So what you're saying is, as previously entrepreneurs have been given tax breaks when they've invested in new plant, in new equipment, they should be given tax breaks too when they train people and give them really tangible skills that benefit not just them, but the broader economy.
That's absolutely right. You know, the only way to get through this cost of living crisis is not to do more tax handouts, to pay everybody's tax bill, to tax the most wealthy oil companies, etc., and throttle their investment. No, we've got to become more productive so that we earn more. It means we're going to have to pay more to our staff, and a labour shortage means there's going to be a competition for skills. So we're going to have to pay more, and to become more productive, we need to unlock talent, and we need to develop skills and develop, right across the regions here, so that we can produce more for less, be more productive, earn more, pay more for our staff, and that way we'll deal with the inflationary pressures. I mean, the cost of living, it's not going to go away anywhere near as quickly as the Bank of England hopes. And who says that gas or oil prices are going to just come back down again? It's a one-way movement, I'm afraid. And we have to compete in a world market here. We need to become more productive, and we need to do that with the people.
We are going to carry on this discussion after the break, but just before we do, Kevin Hollinrake, let me bring you in again. Do you think, we all agree so far, the discussion will carry on, we all agree so far there's not much in this Queen's speech to immediately help people deal with this cost of living crisis? There hasn't actually been any additional help with fuel bills since Putin invaded Ukraine and wholesale oil and gas prices went up even more. The assistance package that Rishi Sunak announced was in mid-February, when Ofgem increased the price cap before that Russian invasion. So, Kevin Hollinrake, do you think there should be some kind of emergency budget, a cost of living assistance package this summer?
Well, I think the Chancellor has certainly said there will be something this autumn when the energy cap is due to change again. So there will be something at that point in time. But I think, as you know, Liam, all this has got to be paid for. It's either consumers paying the bills or it's the taxpayer paying the bills and supporting other consumers. This is not easy. These are global market forces. My own preference is we provide more support, as I said, to those households on very low incomes. They're the ones we really have to look after through this crisis. But generally, there is, other than the Bank of England stepping in and increasing interest rates, which it's finally doing, I think it's going to take some time before inflation heads back towards that 2% target. It's going to be a rough ride for a lot of people.